Give it 1 second. Take a deep breath, feel into your own body in whatever way feels good, hands on or not. There we go. And maybe a couple of physiological sighs where you just take a big deep breath in. Let out some sound, wiggle around, just letting go of whatever pressures are coming from the outer world. And maybe even letting go of whatever pressures are on the inner world that don't need to be there. Shaking, wiggling, just coming into this moment, releasing whatever you need to release. So I've called this class today, Lungs Embracing Heart, because that's what they do. Like as we breathe, our heart is in there and our lungs, like here's our heart inside, but right outside of that are our lungs. And there's this like natural massaging that's going on through the breath and through that breath deep in our body. So like, it's not like just up here or just down into our guts, but this middle breath where the lungs are squishing the heart and giving it space. I just took a workshop yesterday with, well, it was an online live with Gil Hedley and Leslie Kaminoff, who's a big breathwork person, was his co-host. And they were talking a lot about the diaphragm and breathing and embodiment and anatomy. And often our models for like the diaphragm are like a balloon or an umbrella, but a better model is a jellyfish. And like the way that the jellyfish moves, when the top of the jellyfish is going up, the outer parts are usually going down. And when the top of the jellyfish is going down, like this is part of how that movement happens. And it's a good metaphor for the lungs. If you take your hands to the edges of your lungs and just soft and lightly inhale in and exhale, you can feel the movement of your ribs and your diaphragm is connecting in on there. So like, so are your transverse abdominis, your obliques connecting into your ribs on different layers of it. So as we move, as we breathe, there's this shape shifting happening. And as we move our bodies, there's more shape shifting. So thinking of these models for our body as being really organic sea creatures or sea grasses, like structures that are, even saying the word structure to me is such a removed way of speaking about the organic system of aliveness that is our fluid body, our biomorphic biotensegrity of our body that has this deeply interwoven on multiple layers and levels relationship that's always one whole thing. So our head, tail, mind, body, spirit, all of it is in this same place the whole time that we're alive. Like even to have an out-of-body experience, you have to have a body. So like it's coming from here. Anyway, so just to take that in, let's use this breath. And it's kind of, we've done the gut body breath before, which is kind of where you have a little bit of spit in your throat. And you kind of gurgle. I want to take that idea, but make it into more of a, so we're going to play with the air and the fluid, right? The breath, our breathing, and then the fluid flow of our body, of our heartbeat, and this interrelated sensation of those flows moving together, right? Air has a flow and it's nonlinear and it's spiraling and there are eddies and whirlpools in that flow. And the blood flow also has that. And even the fluid flow in the rest of our body is nonlinear. It's not like I'm going to go like that down this line. Everything within us is curvilinear. It's spiraling. So back to the breath, we're going to use like a you can kind of open your mouth and close it and play with the fluidity in your mouth, even the fluidity of your tongue. Inviting that spaciousness in, and that sound can be the sounds that are affecting you internally, feeling into them, but also sort of externally, like if you were to move like the sound, how would that happen? To me, I just do it because it just feels like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That just feels right in my body. And not supposed to in a, I should, but in a supposed to, like, oh, it feels very natural. So inviting in this sense of flow and this sense of, right, we of coming into ourselves and radiating away from ourselves, that we have this natural heart hugging happening with every breath. So allowing ourselves to feel into that deeply loving symbiotic relationship that's happening with that breath and fluid body, with the air and the water in our body, in these structures, in these organs. Structures, there's that word again. I would love to find a better word. So playing with the breath and inviting the jellyfish of your diaphragm to swim in any way in the ocean of being, accepting all the stuff that's happening in the life, not fighting against anything, being in this, the flow of life, along with the flow of breath, along with the flow of the fluids in your body. And just imagining that you are being suspended in fluid, so that there's no effort to sit up, no effort or to be a person. Like, it's not like I've sunk down and I've just given in. It's more like, there's this brilliant resiliency, this rebound, this biotensegrity that has a natural elasticity. Leslie Kaminoff talks about the discs within the spine pushing the two vertebrae away from each other. So there's this resilience, this natural push, even in our cartilage, even in our joint capsules, especially in those places where there's this expansion. And we could think of the cartilage in our chest also as having this springy expansiveness, the capacity to move. So letting us play with that breath for a few minutes. Like your mouth is a cave and you're at the ocean edge and the water is coming and going. And as we move, the diaphragm is having all of this fluid freedom, the rib cage and lungs having this fluid freedom, airy freedom, both combo platter. The lungs are wet and juicy, but they take in the air. And then inside of that is that heart getting this lovely compression and release, this extra care. And just tuning into that. The fascial systems of our whole body, or the whole fascial system, this elasticine matrix that's just holding us and giving us the resilience, right? All of our body has this interwoven relation. And if we allow ourselves to tune to it, we can find the lightness of the breath. Or maybe we can find it. It's hard to really say what everybody's having in their own experience, but just offering it out as like this capacity to almost just be suspended in there. I took a Butoh class and she's like, imagine there are strings and they're holding you up and they're picking you up. But you could also imagine that you're just suspended. So either the strings are picking you up and lifting you, or you're just suspended in there. Yeah, Julie, I can't remember her last name. Finding the breath, finding the suspension, and then also tuning to the arms and the hands and the fingers as the wings of the lungs, the wings of the heart. Breathing, finding fluidity in your body. Inviting in this expression in whatever way it wants to play out. Might be very small, might be very big. playing into the wings of the lungs or the wings of the heart. Another thing I just learned from a body mind centering person, and this makes perfect sense, but when we reach out into the distal capillaries of our fingertips and toes, that is where the arterial flow, the flow that's nourishing our body, switches into the venous flow to return with the waist. So there's this place, this sort of place. It's like the top or the bottom of the breath, right? Where we're shifting from one thing into something else. There's a transition, nourishing, 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 and then eliminating waste. And both of those are equally valuable. Like if the waste isn't being eliminated well, then things start to block up, right? So we need the nourishment, and we also need the removal of the waste as it comes back in, ultimately probably coming in to your subclavian vein and returning into the blood flow, and then filtering out through your kidneys, filtering out through your body. So the whole system is in this juicy interrelationship. That's a lot to think about. I'm going to give us music and let us just play with those ideas with some sound. We will, of course, use Jeff Gersh because it is perfect for us. So this is Ambient Fields. It's available on Bandcamp. Well, let's go with this one and pop. Oh, sorry. I meant to turn it down. Didn't mean to bomb you with it. We're going to go right into the middle. There we go. Is that the right tempo, or is it too loud, too quiet? Is it okay? Okay, great, thanks. Let the music massage you. Let the music be the water, and let the music vibrate you. Let the music breathe you. And you can add the breath sounds anytime you want to. Again, sometimes thinking of those strings just lifting you up. It's like there's an impulse that lengthens you out and pulls you somewhere. But then there's this fluidity just supporting all the cells in your body, all the tissue, all the way down to the bone. As your breathing hugs your heart, embraces your heart. Bringing on the full octopus body, tentacles, waves, all the way out to those capillary edges where things turn, coming back into your body. listening for the impulses to move and just allowing it to bubble up. Bubbles, air and water, breath, life force energy, spaciousness, and also containment, right? We don't just have to splat out into the universe. We can come back into ourselves. We can receive from the outer world. We can receive the daylight, the sunlight. We can receive the air. We can receive the relationships that we have with people, with plants, with animals, with ourselves. Nothing to force. Even thinking of the movement of like a pulse, like there's like a suspension and then a push, and a suspension and a push, right? So there's this natural suspension and then wow, off it goes. So how the blood is moving through our body has this shaping quality. It's not just going, it's going, it's pulsing. And all of that pulsing of those, even those little flows in our body are giving us life force energy, right? They're creating fluidity within our system. So appreciating those pulsing forces all the way out to your fingertips and toes. And this hugging of the heart. But we could say that like, as our veins and arteries are moving through our body with these pulses, right? There's a natural microscopic expansion and contraction happening everywhere all the time. So tuning into that. This rebounding force. And our lungs, 2 lobes on one side, 3 on the other, so that we have these different sections. Each of them with their own intelligence and movement, right? These little stacked up lobes. And we want to give the loving kindness, the air, the breath, the life force, all the way down to the deep lobes, the middle one, the top, so that we have this sense of very three-dimensionality of the breath. 60% of the lung space is in the back body, right? We can inhale and open at the back. We can inhale and open up the front. It can go either way. And then we can also let our bodies be less rigidly sort of corseted and Victorian and have more free flow. Take off the corset, let things move. There is naturally pressure differentials that are at the lower part, very high pressure, medium pressure, low pressure. Up here, it's easy. Down there's like a natural sort of vacuuming of the pressure that's coming up. So our pelvic floor has this natural buoyancy as well because of that pressure. And the movement of our body, this internal shape-shifting of the breath and this organ hugging of the diaphragm is also, pressing down and coming up. It's hugging, touching, leaning into our organs and then rebounding back up in this very 3D way. It's massaging our liver, our spleen, and our stomach. So let your organs receive that massage, receiving that movement. Not holding it off, right? Bracing against it, letting it come in, letting the flow enter this space and be present. Letting go of the bracing, the armoring, the corseting, the sucking it in. Let it hang out, let it move. And then those layers of like our abdominals, like we have that transversalis, abdominis. That's the corset layer, but it doesn't have to be squeezing all in at once. Like we can have this movement and life force in there, that it's not just, I gotta hold on. We can let the breath in there. We can let the movement. Maybe if you're going to pick something up, you want to brace and support yourself. But if you're just being a person, you don't need to be bracing everything all the time. There's a natural buoyancy to our body when we allow it to happen. Yeah, so the rectus abdominis on top, internal and external obliques underneath, and then transversus underneath that. And they all have this very three-dimensional way of relating. Oh, and something so cool that I saw, and this is for the Total Anatomy Geeks, and this was in Gil and Leslie Kaminoff's movie. They showed how the diaphragm and the transversus abdominis like almost zip up at the border of the ribs. They are zipping one layer of a flap, another layer, one layer like a zipper, interdigitated or digitated, however you said that. They're like wrapped in, filling in. So these muscles that we think of as their own thing are actually interwoven at the ribs. So allowing that life force, that energy to have mobility, to have dynamic movement, and to have flow. Airflow, fluid flow, flow of life. Being suspended as if lifted up by strings, or just suspended in water, or suspended in the air. Moving beyond the idea of just working with muscles and bones, but allowing the fluids and the breath and the flow to help you find lightness, find ease. When I'm tuned into the fluids, I could just hold my arms up forever. They don't get tired because I'm not holding them with my muscles. They're just floating. The breath is holding them. The fluids are holding them. The movement of the breath and the fluids is just supporting it. pouring your inner body around. And moving into what feels delicious, what feels good. It's very easy to feel painful things in our body. But if we can start to also feel pleasure, feel deliciousness, and allow our bodies to yearn and long for it, to feel into that, right? Oh, if only I just felt good right now. What would I need to do just to allow myself to feel the good feelings in my body? Well, I do feel pretty good. So I'm just saying that as a model of thinking. Listening into the fluids, to the breath, to the gravitational pull of the earth, like creating this relationship of resilience, of rebound. Inviting your expansive imagination into your experience. So letting the imagination dance with this fractal nature of being a human, this tensegrity of being human. Imagining into infinite possibility. What does that even mean? Sometimes we're stuck in our thinking and it kind of puts boxes around everything. What if we just blow up the boxes? I was thinking how sometimes it's hard to receive if you're busy judging or comparing yourself or whatever. Like sometimes if I take a class, somebody else's class, for me to just be there as a receiving student can be very challenging. I'm comparing myself, but if I can let go of all of that, I can really receive and take in the wisdom and then reshare it, right? So thank you, Julie and Francois Poulin, who teaches body mind centering, where I learned about that end point where the capillaries are shifting, where the blood flow is changing from arterial into venous flow. Such a fascinating thing. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Like it just brings this luminous ET finger feeling into my fingers of like, oh, this magical place where the veil turn, it's the thin veil place where everything shifts. It goes from one thing to another thing, like the top or the bottom of the breath. These magical places where everything can change instantly. What is it to be the water? We are probably somewhere between 60 and 70% water. Babies, I think, are born like 90% water. As we age, we get more density, more fibrousness, and a little less fluidity. And one of my teachers, Liz Koch, says we don't have to lose our hydration in our body. We can keep that if we just keep moving, so that the body isn't getting drier and crustier. It's fluid and alive and vital. There's movement out to those little capillary edges in our fingertips. And if we can bring our mind into our fingertips and our sensation into our fingertips, we can really bring that back in, that flow, feeling those little pulses out and back in. Oh, not very good at fading it out. Just giving yourself a couple of minutes or a few breaths to feel it without the music, and to feel like we might say the trace form, or like the shadow of that movement, like what, maybe not the shadow, but the imprint in the energetic space around you of the movement, or the imprint within your body of the movement. Like, when you see a flash of light and then the light is gone, but you can still see it. It's like it's residually imprinted on your brain or in your eyes, in your retina. So thinking of that imprint of the movement and feeling into that. And maybe it's still moving. Maybe stillness. Yeah, in our body, we want our flow to be able to go outwards and our flow to come back in, right? That things go away and then they come back. The arterial flow goes out, the venous flow returns and filters. And the same thing's happening with our cerebrospinal fluid. It's coming in, it's created up in our brain, it goes out and down, it comes back up and in, and then it goes into our heart and clears out. Also through the lymphatic system, after doing the whole giving nourishment and then taking away waste. So deep thoughts about the body, always fascinating to me. And super grateful to Gil Hedley for the work that he does, which is fascinating and excellent. And then Leslie Kaminoff too. All right.